divine with, and that's not true. Biblio basically means books, right? Any books, not just the Bible, right? Even though I have used bibliomancy with the Bible before with good results, okay? And basically what you do, excuse me, is you get a book, okay, and you hold the book in your hands and you ask your question either mentally or out loud. And then you just let the book open randomly. Close your eyes, take your finger, put it on the page. And sometimes what I do is start at the top and I just move my finger down until I feel like it's time to stop. And I will look and see where my finger landed. And whatever the sentence is that my finger is touching is the answer. All right? And it's very compelling, okay, these words. And like I said, you can use any book. I actually did that once. I was rearranging my library, organizing books and things, and I decided to make a little game out of it on Facebook. And so I had people give me a number between 1 through 6 because that's how many shelves I had on that bookcase. And they would pick a number like 3. And then I would go to the 3rd shelf and however many numbers of books were on bookshelf 3, I would tell them to pick a number between 1 and, like if there were 22 books, I would say pick between 1 and 22. Then they would pick that number, like say 6 or whatever, and I would get the 6th book off the shelf and then do the bibliomancy for them. And I would write out on the comments what the sentence said. And what was interesting is that, each sentence that I picked and, gave back to the person, they will come back and tell me how it was relevant, And so I thought that was very fascinating. So yeah, that's bibliomancy. Now there are other forms of divination that I just started getting into, and that's reading with cowrie shells. Now, a popular system of reading or doing divination with cowrie shells is called the Dilagoon. And the Dilagoon is most associated with the African traditional religion of Lukumi, okay, or Orisha tradition, right, of the Yoruba in Nigeria. And there are lots of different opinions about who and who cannot learn and use the Dilagoon, okay? There are some people who say that only the initiated are allowed to study and learn and practice reading the Dilagoon, and then you have others who say, no, that's not true. Anyone can learn it and use it. And then there are some people who say that only men are allowed to read the Dilagoon and not women. And then I heard someone else say they heard the exact opposite, that this is mainly for women and not men. I mean, it's just so many varied opinions out there about this system of divination, okay? So, yeah, when it comes to learning about it, the mileage may vary, depending on who you ask, who you talk to, and whose book you're reading. Now, in the 90s, I came across a book that taught how to read the 16 cowrie shells of the Dilagoon. It was a very simple book. It was a spiral-bound book. The pages had been typewritten, and it had very simple, crude, pen and ink drawings. And I can't remember who the author was, but I do know there were 2 copies out there, 2 sets of this book. I think one was done in Yoruba language and the other one in English. And obviously, I don't speak Yoruba, so I bought the one in English. And I had my 16 open cowrie shells, and I was going to teach myself how to do this. But at the time, we were moving into our home, and I packed everything away. And sadly, that was one of the boxes that did not make it over here, and I lost it. And since then, I have been looking to replace that book. Can't find it anywhere. So if you are familiar with the book that I'm talking about, okay, it was a very thin book, didn't have a lot of pages, and it had, one of those cheap, like Kinko's copies, wire spiral bindings. If you're familiar with it, hit me up and let me know where I can, regain a copy of that book. Now, there are other books out there. I know someone who's written 1 or 2 Oshani Lele, and there are good reviews for the most part about his book, but I do think that he reserves the teaching, the more in-depth teaching, to initiates only. I don't think I've ever seen him offer a class to anyone that isn't initiated. So I think his book is more like an introduction where anybody can pick it up, but it's not necessarily going to teach you everything because of that, the whole initiatory thing. So it is a fascinating form of divination, and who knows, one day I may learn it. I may not, I don't know. But my ancestors taught me a form of cowrie shell divination. And I'm not at liberty to disclose the details about it other than to say, when you are in touch with your ancestors regularly, and you make those strong kinds of bonds with them, they will share things with you. They will teach things to you. They will download, information to you, and you just go from there. It's so empowering, y'all. Okay, now the system of divination that they shared with me, it deals with closed cowrie shells. Now, what's the difference between an open and closed cowrie? The back of it has been filed or cut. Okay, the back of a cowrie that has been unopened is kind of like a smooth dome shape. But usually when you're throwing the shells, it's best for them to, land flat on a surface. And then, there's a spiritual association also with opening the back of a cowrie shell. Okay, so one side will look like the little mouth of the shell, and then the other side is the back. Now, my spirit specifically told me to keep the shells closed. Okay, so I did. I didn't file them open or anything. And they gave me a specific number to work with. And based on how, they fall, up or down, or open side up or back side up, will determine the meaning. All right? And it basically, I guess I can share this. It basically has to do with the spiritual work that I do that my ancestors are a part of. Okay? It's basically like a status check kind of divination, just based on the work that I'm doing, based on the things that I've offered, and, certain prayers that I've made or sang or whatever, okay? So it's just more like, to make sure that what I did was acceptable to the spirits, okay? So, yeah, maybe one day in the future, I will be given permission to share this with others. But right now, that hasn't happened. But I encourage you, to build that kind of relationship with your own spirits, and you'll be surprised at the things that they will teach you. People are always asking me to teach them things. And for a lot of us African descended children, it's not so much of a matter of learning new things, okay? It's oftentimes a matter of remembering what was lost and forgotten. You understand? Because we carry all of this in us, right? But just like your muscles, if you're not used to working out, all right, you're not going to be able to just go and lift 200 pounds if you aren't training. You understand? So the more you work with the ancestors, the stronger you become. And the stronger you become, the easier it is to get this kind of information and make sense out of it right away. All right? So as someone who's been doing this for a very long time, it might be frustrating for you listening. If you're new to this, you just started, or, you want to get started, hearing me tell you, you got to develop bonds, and then you find out it took me decades, it wasn't always the case that I did this every day. For a period of years, I did stop practicing my spirituality. Okay. I just didn't have time or room for it in my life, because of what I was involved with at the time. And it was a very teachable moment, let's say. It left me very vulnerable for spiritual attack, number one, and that happened. Okay. And so, it hasn't been always consistent. I did have to, put it aside, and then I got back into it once I realized, shit was hitting the fucking fan. I had to take care of it, and I knew the only way to do that would be to, fire up my shrines, get everything back up and running again. So, just I didn't have anyone walking me through all of this like I'm doing with you all on these podcasts. Okay. So that's the only thing I can say is different. A lot of the stuff that I did, I had to learn on my own because the people who initially showed me things when I, got my stuff running correctly, we lost touch and I had nobody to turn to. Nobody. Okay. So take advantage. Take advantage of the things that I share with you here, okay? Because it can help. It can help you navigate these waters. It can help speed up the process. It shouldn't take you decades like it did me, all right? So I guess I'm doing a lot of the legwork for you by sharing certain things with you on how to do this thing and how to get it to where it's working for you. Okay, in a way that it can actually, help you in your day to day. So, yeah, your spirits will definitely introduce you to methods of divination. All right. Now, most of us, were raised Christian, and, depending on the type of Christianity you were exposed to, the common concept is, all divination is bad, right? You're not supposed to do it, and there are verses in the Bible that, say, no, you're not supposed to do this. But then if you keep reading the Bible, there are other verses that speak on people casting lots. Well, what is that? That's divination. So there is a big contradiction. Most people tend to focus on the stuff that forbids it, and nobody really pays attention to how later on in the Bible they're actually doing it, right? But, that's neither here nor there. Most people are afraid of it. Most people think this is some sort of doorway to the devil. And, the only way we know these things is because we have demons whispering in our ears. Well, that's the spooky Eurocentric way of looking at it. And sadly, a good number of us have been indoctrinated, our parents, our grandparents, and so forth were indoctrinated with that thinking. And it is not the African way. Africans don't have, devils and demons and things like that. Okay, the Africans see spirit in everything. All right, because that's just the way they saw the Creator. When a Creator creates something, he or she puts a part of himself in every one of his creations. So if you believe that the Creator created everything, then you know that spirit resides in everything, and so that's why they would look to the natural world for answers. Now, the African way of divination was by and large throwing bones. Now, it wasn't always, bones as in the remains of, people, animals, birds, whatever, right? Sometimes there were other objects mixed in as well, like pieces of wood, stones, fossils, roots, dried roots and nuts and things of that sort. Okay, other little pieces of, flora or whatever would also be thrown into the mix. Animal teeth and things of that sort. And sometimes you did have systems where it was just bones. And specific animals, because specific animals represented specific spiritual ideas. Right now, I think that the Sangoma style of bone throwing is what's been popular over the last few years, thanks to this lovely woman, Michelle Jackson. She studied the Sangoma style of bone divination, bone throwing, and wrote a book about it. And she partnered up with my brother in spirit, Robert Lucas, also known as Ancestor Healing. And he created a divination set using bones and other things. Or it's based on the idea of throwing bones. And if you are interested in either one of those, you can find them on social media. I know they're both on Facebook. And Robert's set in particular, it's on my list of things to acquire. It is so beautiful. It's stunning. And I know a couple of people who bought them, and they can't speak higher enough about these sets. And I think there are two different types. One is like a basic set, and then the other one has more pieces to it that are spiritually empowered. Robert, by the way, is a priest of Palo, called a Palero. Okay, he's been a practitioner of Palo for many, 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 many years, and he is also initiated into the Osha tradition. That's the Orisha tradition, and so